My name is Neil Patel, and I help companies generate more revenue through digital marketing. Entrepreneur Magazine said I was the #1 marketer in the world, and they also said I created one of the 100 most brilliant companies. I started my first website at the age of 16. I took all the money that I earned from working at an amusement park, and I paid a marketing firm. The marketing firm provided no results, and I quickly learned that I wasn't alone. Out of my frustration and from being broke, I had no choice but to learn marketing. My first client was a power supply manufacturer. I helped them generate another $25 million in sales, and from that point, I realized the power of marketing. I helped everyone that I could, and I built my reputation by being honest and over-delivering. I've helped companies like Google, NBC, Viacom, General Motors, eBay, but nothing's more satisfying than helping small business owners succeed. I founded 4 multi-million-dollar companies, and I've learned all the mistakes that you should avoid. I've written about them on Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, and even on my own blogs. It's so awesome to know that colleges from all around the world are teaching my material in their classroom. Over the years, I've received awards from the President of the United States, the House of Representatives, and the United Nations. People believe marketing is expensive and difficult. Fortunately, that's not true. There is a formula. Even if you don't have a technical bone in your body, you can get results. And my mission is to share this formula with you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today. As a heads up, I'm a little bit under the weather. I still have a fever and a cough and a few other symptoms. And sorry for the background noise. I have little kids here, and they don't necessarily understand when you're sick, although I tend to get sick from my kids, which is what happened in this case. So awesome. Dave, you want to share the screen?
Yeah, should be good to go.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about AI marketing trends, what's really working and what's not. So we're NP Digital. We won a lot of different awards, Performance Marketing Agency of the Year for multiple years. Worked with a lot of clients. We're testing a lot when it comes to AI. So keep in mind today, when we're giving feedback on AI, it's not blind advice based on what we're reading. It's based on what we're actually testing and doing at our own ad agency and for our clients. So I'm Neil Patel. I'm the co-founder of NP Digital. We've been doing this now. I think we had our 6th year now. So it's an amazing milestone, or this will be our 6th year. We're close enough to it. And I've had the lovely opportunity to work with David Shapiro, who heads up Earned Media, and Chad, who heads up content. David and Chad, do you want to give a quick intro on yourselves?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Neil. So as Neil mentioned, my name is David Shapiro. I oversee the Earned Media team here at NP Digital. We'll have been with the company 5 years in January, and really looking forward to this presentation and talking about how we are utilizing AI in our day-to-day and how y'all might be able to utilize it as well.
Yep, and I'm Chad Gilbert. I'm the Senior Director of Content Marketing at NP Digital. So I oversee our content production teams as well as our digital public relations promotion teams. I have 10 plus years experience in the industry, and I've been lucky enough to work alongside David and Neil now for almost 6 years at NP Digital. And I too am excited to be here today to talk about what's working with AI in marketing and some of the things that might not be working as well right now. And just a look forward ahead, as well as some case studies sprinkled throughout. So looking forward to presenting.
So the big thing with AI right now is it's really changing up how, people are doing marketing. And what I mean by that is it's really changed the internet. And with most people in the marketing world, they just look at AI as like, oh, it can help you create content. But more importantly, imagine hundreds of millions of dollars is being spent on ads, billions, not millions, hundreds of billions a year just on Google and Facebook, right? Google is getting close, I think, to around 200 billion, a little bit less, from, if I'm not mistaken, I think 184, somewhere around there. and Facebook's over 100 billion. Like, just imagine how much wastage there is, right? AI can help optimize that. Like even with Google, they have Performance Max, which is using machine learning and AI. And funny enough, we talk about some ways you can use humans combined with AI to maximize the results from that. Or there's things that you can do with AI, such as better segment your audience or analyze data or figure out how to replicate more touch points that a human would do to create a better experience. Or even learn, hey, here are the pages that are declining in traffic. Maybe we should update these pieces of content first. And you can use ChatGPT to help update your content with the human combined with AI, right? There's a lot that AI can do. And when everyone's talking about it and your parents are using it, it's pretty much something that is here to stay. The last time I checked SimilarWeb, ChatGPT was the 29th most popular site. They pulled that off in roughly a year. Think about that. In 1 year, it went from being nothing to the 29th most popular site on the internet. But when you look at AI, it's not just affecting marketing, it's affecting all industries. And if you look at the rate of adoption, according to McKinsey, over 50% of businesses have adopted AI. Statista also is showing some stats here based on what they're seeing as the adoption as well. And when McKinsey's looking at the data, they're looking at Fortune 100 companies. Statista here is looking at all companies of all sizes. And what's really cool now with AI, it's not just something that Fortune 100 companies can implement because they have money. It is now available to the masses. And you're going to see it in everything from accounting to banking to finance to marketing and advertising to consulting to healthcare, right? Imagine doctors getting more real-time feedback so that way they can make better adjustments to give you better treatments. So should you be incorporating AI into your marketing stack? The short answer is yes, but, and you'll see this on the next slide, there's a lot of options. Which ones are worth your time and energy? Which ones should you be using? Which ones are just a waste? Some of them are just features and they're not going to really last. Some of them are platforms. Some of them really can impact what you're doing. But yeah, like for example, Midjourney, been using it for ages. It works out really well. Adobe has some amazing products as well. The list goes on and on. But the big question, and we'll cover some of this, is what applications are really worth your time?
Yeah. And so we're first going to unpack those AI applications in marketing that are working well so far. But more specifically, we'll focus on 8 main sections of what's working well and how it's helping increase lead generation, engagements, conversion rates, and customer insights for us, just to name a few. And we have some examples and case studies throughout that'll highlight what's working as well. But first and foremost, I'm going to cover off on generative AI and what's working specifically with this. So from ideation to post-publish QA, generative AI is helping marketers and us at MP Digital automate important production steps along the way. And writing, image generation, and video creation are just 3 of some of those big ways that we're starting to see AI work well for us and some of the clients we service. By the way, many of these images you'll see on the slides here, including this one with the light bulb, are 100% AI generated. So that's a fun fact throughout this presentation. You'll see some of those great images we've been using AI to create. So one of the main ways that we use AI is to repurpose final content into other formats. Specifically, and if, on the previous slide, I'm still chatting through some of that, but the main way that we're using AI is taking a final piece of content and repurposing it into many different formats. So once you have a final article or informational post, you can use that and have AI cut that up into different social posts, maybe a script to do a video recording for TikTok or other social channels. But AI is great at taking already final content from humans and or that has been abided by a style, tone, voice guideline, and then repurposing that specifically and prompting it accordingly. And in a recent study from Salesforce, 76% of marketers say that they're utilizing AI in content production for writing specifically. And a majority are using it for creative brainstorming, analyzing marketing data, and generating images and other rich media formats. Make sure you stick around to the end of this webinar. We'll share a great resource where you can find proven AI tools for all these marketing tasks and more. And brands are leaning into AI more and more. A quick case study here. Tomorrow Sleep is a startup mattress company that needed help increasing their organic traffic to its site. The company utilized AI content planning and an optimization software, MarketMuse, to produce content to fill specific gaps. Within 1 year, that organic traffic to Tomorrow Sleep went from 4,000 to 400,000 organic traffic per month, which is a great increase. And we're seeing that across the board as you start utilizing AI in different ways to produce content, edit content, and generate different formats of content. And there's no shortage of companies and tools in the AI space. And here are a few of our favorites that we've used in one way or another, or that we're using actively as part of our strategy at MP Digital. ChatGPT and Claude.ai for production and copy editing. Those are two of my favorites. Adobe Firefly, and Neil mentioned Midjourney as well for images, equally favorite in terms of visual elements and creating new images and just getting some inspiration from these tools. And Murph.ai for audio or voiceover needs in your video production flow is another great tool and one that we're leaning into. One thing to note is to test these tools and stay skeptical with all of the outputs that are happening right now, right? The human portion and human element and QA factors of these AI tools is still very important and will remain important as this AI revolution continues. I remain skeptical and always review and QA anything AI generates because outputs can have factual errors, outdated information, it lacks originality and creativity, and it may be plagiarized or could be a negative or deceitful piece of content that could harm you or your brand if you're not careful. One tool that we use all the time is Copyscape. It's a great tool to check for plagiarism and originality across the web. So it's a nice pulse along with your human QA that you'll be doing for any of the written content that comes out of these tools.
So next we'll talk about AR and VR, right? So augmented reality and virtual reality. And I feel like, 10 years ago, it seemed like every year was going to be the year of mobile. And I feel for the past 3 or 4, it's been like, this is going to be the year of AR and VR. But I think that this might actually be the year coming up, mainly because Apple is going to be getting into the game in a major way, right? So they're going to be releasing Apple Vision Pro, which I think is going to be around $4,000. So good luck getting your hands on one. But it's going to be a game changer. There's going to be a lot of adoption of virtual reality technology. Now, we'll talk about both. And AR has been around for quite a bit, right? So augmented reality is, basically, you point your phone at something and it overlays an image onto what already exists, right? So here's an example of, somebody using it for glasses, right? So you take a picture of yourself and then it tries on or shows you what you would look like with different versions of glasses. So that's just one example. We'll talk about another example in a bit about Sephora, but this happens a lot already, right? Google already has a product called Google Lens, which has some AR capabilities as well. And so this is going to be an area that, marketers should really lean in to enhance the customer experience. Anytime you're going to have people try stuff on or try to understand how something looks based on some change, you can use augmented reality for that. There's a lot of furniture companies that use it as well. So you can take a picture of your room and you can see what a piece of furniture that you're trying to buy or how it would look, in your room. So there's so many different ways to utilize this: product trials and demos, interactive games and contests, enhanced online shopping. So, really think through what your audience is trying to accomplish and how you might be able to utilize augmented reality to give them a better idea of what your product will look like in their hands or, in their room or on their face, depending on what it is. And then, virtual reality, as I was just talking about, is going to be much bigger, right? I think anytime Apple enters a market, as they did with the iPhone, again, keep in mind, the iPhone was not the first cell phone by any stretch of the imagination. And the Apple Vision Pro is not going to be the first virtual reality device. Clearly, Oculus already exists, and there's a lot of folks that already have it. But, again, Apple's going to enter the market. There's going to be a lot of people that do have this product. And I think there's consequently going to be a lot of content created for these types of products that just wasn't created in the past. So this is an area that not only are people going to have more access to, but there's also going to be easier tools to create, content for these environments. And I know Neil mentioned Midjourney a little while ago, but there's, Midjourney and Firefly and all the tools that Chad mentioned previously that are going to make creating content for these experiences a lot easier. So this is something right now that's really difficult. It's tough to create a VR experience, but it's going to become easier and more cost effective in the future. So definitely something to keep in mind and try to understand how your audience or your potential customers, might be moving about virtual environments and how you can utilize that technology and those content experiences to get them more exposure to your brand. So, one example that we do want to highlight, as Chad mentioned, we're going to be talking about case studies for all of this, is Sephora. So they created a couple of years ago a virtual artist in which, they used AI and AR to come up with this campaign, right? So users would take their cell phone, take a picture, and then it would show them, the app would show them how certain makeup would actually look on them, right? So instead of having to actually try it themselves, they could take a picture and see really quickly, how different makeup would actually look on their face. So it was a great experience for their users. It got them a lot of positive brand recognition, and it ultimately ended up being really valuable for their brand. So AR and VR, again, while it might be, every year has been the year of AR and VR for the past couple, I think 2024 is really going to be that year. Not only is there going to be more adoption, but there's going to be easier access to tools. So certainly think about utilizing those for your marketing efforts going forward.
Awesome. And now we're going to unpack a little bit about what is working with automation in marketing specifically. And, we've been mentioning it throughout, but AI is revolutionizing the way we plan and execute marketing activities. And on the next slide, some of the key areas that AI is working well include sentiment analysis for campaign personalization at scale, campaign optimizations from data-driven insights, so really optimizing what's out there from that specific data that you're able to now gather and analyze with AI tools. Content creation based off of real-time customer data, which is something that we're definitely leaning into, and real-time decision-making with chatbots and other virtual assistants that a lot of companies are starting to test. However, we do have a cautionary tale about chatbots later in this webinar that we'll touch on. And here are 4 examples of marketing workflows where AI-driven automation is working, along with a mix of tools to support with that automation. So email marketing, from sending personalized email campaigns and creating and managing email lists, and then also tracking that performance. HubSpot is an Omnisender, a couple of those tools that are supporting that workflow. Social media marketing, from that sentiment analysis and strategy content calendar planning. And Sprout Social is one that we use at MP Digital for a lot of our brands, as well as some of the other tools that are listed here. Content marketing workflows, generating content ideas and or chunking out specific pieces of content that you're building. AI is doing a great job at that. And obviously we know a lot of those AI generated copy tools that are being utilized now. And customer relationship management is another area that we're starting to see AI generation and automation come into play in a big way. And a case study that we'll talk through on here is from Copa Airlines and how they used automation to improve their email campaigns. So Copa Airlines leaned into the email marketing automation flow to clean up their current email list and produced relevant, personalized emails for each of their target audiences based on information that was gathered. And they launched an automatic retargeting sequence for abandoned contacts. So they saw some great results early on, 14% increase in revenue, 2% increase in conversions, and a 2% increase in open rates, all while decreasing the amount of unsubscribers from that email list. So that's some great info and a great case study to highlight there from an automation standpoint.
Great. Now we're going to talk about predictive analytics, and predictive analytics is something that has been pretty big for a while and has only taken a step and a leap forward with AI. One of the things that ChatGPT is able to do really well now with their advanced data analysis is helping the average person who doesn't have a statistics degree analyze data and help understand what predictions can be made in the future based on what's happened in the past. So there's a lot of different areas that this comes to life, right? Customer segmentation and targeting, lead scoring, churn prediction, and personalization are just 4 core areas that are now accessible to marketers that probably weren't accessible in the past. You know, and there's lots of different examples of this having taken place already in the wild, right? So Netflix recommendation system is probably one of the most popular. You know, when it debuted, it was almost scary how good Netflix was at showing you content in movies and shows that you would want based on what it knows that you liked in the past. And, you know, the Amazon algorithm around customers that also viewed a certain product have bought this other product, that tends to be really good. So there's so many different ways that big companies are utilizing predictive analytics to help understand what their customers were doing in the past and how that might allow them to make decisions in the future. So, you know, definitely something to think about as it relates to, you know, just even looking at your own web analytics, right? Like what have your customers and people visiting your website been looking at, and how can you use that to inform what you might want to create in the future, right? You can think about content ideas. You can think about different pieces of content that might be missing, you know, based on what you know people have been looking for and looking at in the past. So lots of different ways to make this come to life. Another example of how Uber actually utilized this. So, you know, they used a machine learning model to identify cohorts of both, you know, potential riders and drivers who were more likely to churn. And so when they realized the patterns that, you know, were showing up in these customers, they identified them and then reached out to them with specific targeted communications to potentially reduce churn. Right now, of course, there's a limit on the effectiveness of this, right? Like you're not going to, you know, utilize predictive analytics to take churn from, you know, 20% down to 0, right? You'll never get anything down to 0. But if you can save 10%, you know, of the people that were likely to churn, that's actually a big number, right? That'll be a significant amount of drivers and a significant amount of riders as well. So, you know, these tools are great. They're really effective, and utilizing, you know, ChatGPT and some other tools, they're more accessible than ever to marketers.
Now we'll touch on natural language processing, or NLP for short. But natural language processing is a field of artificial intelligence focused on enabling computers to understand, interpret, and manipulate human language. Natural language processing draws from many disciplines, including computer science, linguistics, and machine learning. The goal is to teach computers to process and analyze large volumes of natural language data. And as you see on this slide, natural language processing enables a wide range of applications like chatbots, sentiment analysis, predictive text, language translations, just to name a few. And one of the main ways we use natural language processing in marketing to analyze is to understand customer sentiment and identify customer needs within a content journey. And we use AI to analyze sentiment and insights from hundreds of reviews across multiple sources for some of our brands, as well as on social media. You can use this data in a lot of ways. So you can improve your current products, services, or develop something new based on any feedback that you're seeing in the market to meet that new customer demand. You can update existing audience personas and track campaign effectiveness. You can also use that sentiment analysis to generate more marketing content and even improve customer service. One way that Spotify used natural language processing recently is in their search function. You can now, or its search function can now understand the semantic correlation between words users are searching. This change made it much easier for people to find specific podcasts that they were looking for on relevant topics versus having to type in the exact match keyword. So Spotify leaning into this, and obviously a lot of other channels that apps that have search bars have started to lean into that natural language processing to make it easier for users to interact with their platforms.
And the next thing we'll look at is segmentation and personalization, right? I mean, in a lot of ways, this is marketing 101, right? You segment an audience, you target them, and you come up with messaging that's going to be personalized to them and make them convert. And there's so many different ways that you can segment a market, right? customer segmentation, so demographics, psychographics, behavior, right? So, who are our people? What are the features that are unique and similar in that cohort? Product segmentation, and then market segmentation as well, right? And again, this is kind of elementary marketing stuff, but it's no surprise that the more that you segment a campaign and the more that you personalize it, generally speaking, it's going to get better results. Now, of course, on the edges, that might not be the case. And if you're trying to do a mass market campaign, then segmentation might do more harm than good. But, on balance, segmentation is ultimately a thing that is going to be helpful. In personalization, right? So the more that you're able to tailor marketing messages based on what you know about the customer, it's going to drive better outcomes, right? So, the stat right there, 92% of businesses using AI-driven personalization to drive growth in their business. That shouldn't be a surprise, right? I mean, I don't know how many sports fans we have on this call, but anytime I go to ESPN, the main story is about, I'm in Chicago, so I'm a big Bulls and Bears fan, and the main story is always about something about the Bulls and the Bears. And what it links to is a story that was really written about all teams in the NFL or NBA, but they personalized the headline just for me. And I click on it, and that leads to better engagement. I would be less likely to click on it if it was basically like, hey, see what we think is going to happen to all, 30 NBA teams or 32 NFL teams. Like, I wouldn't really care. But if it has a specific headline speaking to what's going on about the teams I care about, it gets me engaged, gets me to read. And those are things that I probably wouldn't have done if it wasn't personalized. So personalization is obviously, incredibly important in something that will drive significant outcomes if you're able to utilize it pretty well. So, lots of different ways that this can actually manifest itself. So email marketing, right? Testing different subject lines and topics based on how you segment your list, right? Social media marketing. So utilizing AI to understand, what messages might be good on what platforms and how you can, you might have different audiences on different platforms and how you can tailor the messages to them to make it more likely to engage. And then last but not least is website personalization. This is the example that I was just talking about. With ESPN, right? They do a great job of it. You see a lot of the news websites do this as well, based on the types of news and based on the things that they know about you that are likely to drive interest, they tailor the content to you in order to ultimately, show you a good experience, right? And if we were talking maybe 5-10 years ago, this might actually be a negative thing, right? For SEO specifically, you wanted to have one version for bots so they could see exactly what the page is about. But, now with Google leaning into clicks and engagement and that being a huge factor, the more you're able to drive engagement, the better it is that you're going to ultimately rank. So, definitely work on personalizing the experiences if you can. A lot of the modern CMSs will allow you to incorporate some sort of personalization, and ChatGPT and other LLMs are making it easier to produce personalized content at scale. To ultimately make this come alive for you and your audience. So there's a lot of different, tools that you can use to analyze data, right? Not going to list all of them here, but clearly you can see everything listed here. They've incorporated AI functionality or are built around AI functionality today, in order to make it easier for users to analyze data, understand what's happening with their markets, and then ultimately make decisions based on it. And then here's an example of ChatGPT-4 plus Notable.io. You can basically do a lot of different analyses that, again, as I was mentioning before, were tough to do unless you had a data scientist on staff, right? So trend analysis, performance distributions, right? Understanding across the entire data set, what are the distributions of open rates and CTRs. You can run correlation analysis. And all of this just helps you make slightly better decisions, right? And again, if you can make decisions that are just 10% better all the time going forward, 10% incremental improvements, if you stack them on top of each other, do drive significant results over time. So these tools allow you to make smarter decisions more consistently, and therefore you drive better outcomes for your business. And here's a case study of, creating email campaigns that are very personalized with AI. Casabella, utilized an AI platform to run its email marketing campaigns. And you just saw a significant improvement really in all of the metrics that matter, right? So, 60% revenue increase year over year, 4% open rate improvement year over year, 40 to 60% percentage of holiday email revenue that grew, and so on and so forth, right? So just significant results that you can see from email marketing by utilizing AI, alongside your campaigns.
And similar to sentiment analysis of reviews, as I mentioned in a prior section, social listening is another area where AI works very well. So from monitoring mentions and trends and competitive activity to identifying emerging trends and patterns and overall sentiment, AI is making it easier and cheaper for marketers to access this data. And on the next slide, it kind of goes through some of those things that I just mentioned in terms of what we're monitoring and how we can analyze and put those things into place and into action specifically. And there are a myriad of benefits from AI-powered social listening. So, and the biggest one that we're leaning into at MP Digital is gathering deeper insights of our target audiences from social channels and helping to enhance the targets with even more demographic data, preferences, and behaviors, and of course, layering in that sentiment. This helps tailor our content and promotion strategies with real-time qualitative data. And some example of social listening tools listed here. Our favorite, as I mentioned, is Sprout Social. We've also used a few of these others listed here, but they are also equally as great and all have different features and tools for you from a listening standpoint and a monitoring standpoint, as well as a social scheduling and content calendaring and strategy planning. So definitely take a look at some of these social tools. There are free versions of some of these, and then some of them also have their paid experience as well. And a case study from a social listening standpoint and social media engagement, the News Movement is a media platform, and they wanted to increase its audience engagement and reach on their channels. They started analyzing petabytes of data across a number of platforms to understand what their audience was thinking and talking about. After changing some messaging strategies on social from those real-time learnings, they were able to increase engagement and save hours of time each week from the optimization and efficiencies gained from that campaign. Just feeding that data, that quality or the qualitative data coming in, feeding it back into their strategy, and then changing and optimizing based on what they were learning.
And last but not least, a very important decision often overlooked by marketers is pricing decisions, right? So how do you want to go about pricing your product? Is it premium? Is it an exclusive? Or is it going to be low cost and something for more of a mass market, right? And so AI allows you to, better analyze data to come up with how you might want to price your products. And you can even, as we've seen on Amazon, in some cases, they do dynamic pricing. So different prices for different audiences. So a lot of, again, ways to analyze data. And I know I keep mentioning it, but I would definitely recommend OpenAI's or ChatGPT's advanced data analysis functionality. It's only available in the Pro version, which is $20 a month, but it allows you to do so much. You can unlock a data set, you upload a data set that can help you make a lot of these types of decisions and do different types of analyses so you can make better informed decisions around how you want to price and ultimately, how you want to therefore go to market. So many different levers that you can pull, right? I mean, there's just so many things listed here, from dynamic pricing, sentiment analysis, real-time A/B testing. There's just so many different things that are now accessible to marketers that weren't before, right? So definitely utilize ChatGPT's advanced data analysis so you can unlock some of this functionality that, again, was very difficult to get unless you either are a data scientist or had access to data scientists in the past. And, Airbnb is one company that utilized this, at this point, 8 years ago, November 2015, to come up with their own smart pricing tool, right? So they basically looked at a lot of different factors, figured out what a good price would be or an optimal price would be for both hosts and for guests, right? To maximize the likelihood that hosts were able to fill the rooms that they had while also, making as much money as they could. Based on what Airbnb knew about people's willingness to pay, based on seasonality, based on what they paid before, et cetera, et cetera. So, so many different ways to utilize this. You see this with flight. There's a lot of flight tools as well, that will show you, hey, we think now is a good time to book a flight based on what we know about how prices fluctuate for flights based on the day of the week, based on the route, and based on lots of different factors. So, AI, is something that allows marketers to make better decisions around pricing, to maximize the revenue that you're able to drive for your product or set of products.
So David and I covered off a little bit about what is working and some applications there, but now we're going to mention and speak through some of the risks and limitations of AI-powered marketing. So we've mentioned it throughout, but AI definitely lacks creativity and originality because it relies on existing data. It also outputs lots of cliches and maybe overused phrases, and it really lacks substance, especially from initial outputs of these tools. Nothing you get from a generative AI is truly new. It's just regurgitated content that's already out there. So make sure that when you are utilizing this type of content, that you are giving it that human QA and that review to make sure that you are massaging any sentences or flows of content into an original, unique experience versus just using the output as is. It also lacks authenticity. What makes a brand authentic? Well, there are three main pillars of authenticity that's built in. So the continuity, the credibility, and the character of the brand. So in fact, 55% of industry professionals believe that consumers will find a brand less authentic if it uses AI-generated content in their marketing and advertising strategy. So if you're able to tell that a piece of content that you're reading on a site is generated by AI and doesn't have that uniqueness or that human touch or that element that's personalized to you or the user, you are going to start thinking that it's less authentic. The keys to retaining authenticity when using AI are human review and transparency. You need humans to ensure the messaging AI generates are consistent and in line with your brand's character. And you should always be transparent with your audience about the fact that you're using AI in certain portions of your production process. And because AI recommendations are driven by data rather than human experience, it does lack common sense. This can lead to outputs that are repetitive, irrelevant, or worse, culturally insensitive in nature. So we really need to be mindful of this when you are utilizing any AI tools, especially from the copy standpoint. And what about translations? Well, AI does a good job at translating very factual, straightforward, or more or less bulleted content, such as Wikipedia page copy. We're actually helping a couple of our clients right now translate some newly published Wikipedia pages across 6 other languages. And we found that Claude.ai did a great job at translating the facts, the history, and the bulleted point information of those Wikipedia pages. However, AI is not great at translating, at least now, that longer form editorial content in any type of persuasive copy or even localizing certain keywords from one language to another. These types of translations and tasks are really still better suited for humans. AI can get you a little bit of a way there, but you really will have to spend a lot of time QAing and unpacking that translation if it is that longer form editorial content that might not be rooted with more factual bulleted information like I mentioned about the Wikipedia page.
There's also a tremendous amount of bias and misinformation that exists in LLMs. It can lead to discrimination and unfair treatment. For example, if you ask, I think it was Midjourney to draw a picture of a CEO, it would almost always be a male. And there's all sorts of things that these LLMs can get wrong, right? And so really making sure that the amount of time that you're saving through the use of these tools for creation, you're at least putting some of that time back into editing and QA, because you really don't want to do anything that's going to harm your brand and your brand's reputation through your use of LLMs. It's just so important to have somebody who knows your brand guidelines and somebody who knows your brand look at everything that these tools are creating to make sure that that they're on brand, right? And you're not going to do anything that's going to damage the reputation of your brand, because while these tools allow you to be more efficient, you're going to spend a hell of a lot more time in a PR crisis, if you're not careful with these tools. So certainly use them. We use them a lot, but make sure that you do have that human touch to ensure that you're not introducing anything that's going to potentially damage your brand by utilizing these tools. There's also a ton of privacy concerns, right? So, you really should be very careful before you upload, your private data into these tools, right? So there's an example, I think it was Samsung engineers, maybe 6 months ago or early in 2023, where they uploaded some portion of their code base for, I think, either phones or TVs, to look for errors. And then I think a competitor was able to actually access it as well. So, don't upload anything that's sensitive. And one of the things that we do at NPD, if we're going to have AI analyze any sort of data set, is we remove the column that has the identifying information. So if we're uploading a set of keywords, like some Google Search Console data, we'll change the actual keywords from the keywords themselves to just like a number, right? 1 through however many keywords there are. And then, have it run an analysis. And then afterwards, we do a VLOOKUP, or I guess an XLOOKUP these days, and tie it back together. So, make sure you're not uploading any sort of private data that, your clients wouldn't want you to upload, to make sure that you're doing everything you can to be or to abide by privacy regulations as well. And, again, just to the idea of, having human moderators, human editors, keep track of what these tools are doing. There was a very famous case in 2016, well before ChatGPT, but again, utilizing similar types of technology, where Microsoft launched an AI chatbot named Tay, and it was supposed to learn based on the conversations that it was having with users. Now, of course, on a large enough group of people, you're going to have, unfortunately, it's going to go south really quickly. And, not surprisingly, as people started to tweet racist and misogynistic stuff at Tay, it started to mirror that back to its users, right? So I'm not going to read all of these tweets, of course, but they were really bad, and Microsoft had to shut it down within 24 hours. And it was it did a decent amount of reputational harm, not only to Microsoft, but to to chatbots in general. So like any good platform, right? Make sure that you have moderation. Make sure you're looking at the output of these tools to make sure that they're not going to do any harm to your brand, and make sure that they're only going to ultimately do good.
So some of the key takeaways is, look, AI is very important when it comes to marketing, but don't just rely on AI blindly. Integrate human touch when you can, and you'll be able to fine tune it much more and get better produced results. It's crucial for every business to look at the different tools and applications out there. And you have to weigh out, all right, what's the risk of using these tools or products, and what's the benefits? And you just got to make sure the benefits outweigh the risk. So we actually have a library of proven tools that you can check out. All you have to do is just scan the QR code with your camera, and it'll end up taking you to a URL that pretty much has a list of all the AI tools, and it gives them brief overview on the tools as well. And if you're unsure on how you can leverage AI within your marketing to get better results, scan the QR code or just go to npdigital.com and book a call with one of our team members, and we can figure out how we can help you succeed, whether it's with AI and integrating marketing to be more fine-tuned and generate better ROI, or whether it is just as simple as solving some of your problems and helping you hit your growth goals for 2024. Now, Black Friday is coming up. It's a massive sales time, and a lot of people, or a lot of e-commerce companies and non-e-commerce companies, even B2B, generate a lot of revenue during Black Friday. We do as well, even though we're B2B. We have a whole webinar series that we ended up doing that breaks down SEO, CRO, email, and paid for Black Friday. Scan the QR code. Make sure you check it out before we get to Black Friday. It'll help you generate a little bit more sales. So that's it. Let's dive into some questions now.
All right. Good stuff, Neil, Chad, David. Hi, everyone. I'm Colin from Neil's marketing team, kind of collecting and gathering questions as we go, and no shortage of them this morning. Maybe, I don't know who's best for this one, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Might be a David question, maybe a Neil question. How well does sentiment analysis work for smaller organizations that have a limited data set. I think we all know that the more data that we have, the better the machine learning is, the better the output will be. But does it work at all, sentiment analysis, when you've got a relatively small data set?
Yeah, it could. It definitely could. I mean, to Colin's point, right? It's like the bigger the data set, the more useful it's going to be. But you can certainly derive some insights based on, based on a smaller data set. So, if you're looking at whatever it may be, right? Your tweets, your content on LinkedIn, sentiment analysis could give you an idea of potentially ways to move forward based on what it is that you ultimately see there. So, short answer is yes, it can. But of course, like any of these tools, the bigger the data set, the better the outcomes are going to be.
Yeah. And I know through experience myself, just wait a little longer if you can. The longer you wait, the more data you're probably going to have to look at. So here's one, and touched on it multiple times, but I think it's just a topic that continues to come up. So we know that AI can't just write all of the content, and there needs to be some sort of human interaction. But are there ways that we know of where, Google or Bing are able to detect this and then penalize rankings? Are there ranking factors associated with AI copy generation, I guess is the question.
Yeah, I can take that stab at that first. So, while we might not have specific data just yet of this AI content did this in rankings for this particular site, we do know that Google and search engines continue to put an emphasis on the EEAT factor. So your experience, your expertise, your authoritativeness, and your trustworthiness on any given topic. So that's all human elements that AI really can't replicate well. So leaning into all of those higher level content experiences going forward. So what makes something authoritative in the space? Well, typically data, case studies, firsthand experiences, quotes from subject matter experts, interviews with those individuals. So those types of tactics are going to start being infused in content more and more, so that you can separate yourself from that saturated 101 type, just AI generated content that doesn't have that expertise, experience, authoritativeness, and trust built into it. So that's one thing I'll mention, and something that you're going to see continuously coming out with Google's helpful content updates, along with other search engines that are leaning into awarding unique, creative, authoritative content going forward. So all the same things that would rank a site before generative AI are going to continue to be important, and even more so going forward.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Chad, for that. Let's see here. I might answer this one and then folks can pile on. Are there tools out there that might recommend content based on search volume, etc.? Answer the Public is my favorite without question. If you're looking for a great visual and sort of a high level content strategy, by query. ATP's got search volume, it's got cost per click, it's got, all sorts of stuff, and things are structured in a really nice format. But any other tools or tips or tricks that you all have, the audience would love to hear about it.
So there's a lot of tools, whether it's Answer the Public or Ubersuggest or Ahrefs or SEMrush, the list goes on and on. The one thing that I'm seeing to keep in mind, even though there's a lot of tools, the tools use a lot of historical data. But with SGE, what we're seeing is early signs of people typing in longer queries. It used to be when you search on Google, you would type in 2-3 word phrases, maybe 5 or 6 if you really want to, go crazy. But now people are typing in sentences because they know they can get the exact answer that they're looking for, right? Just like you would do with prompts on ChatGPT. So if people are starting to type in sentences, this data isn't going to show up well in the tools yet. It's too early. Now, Answer the Public takes a lot of the trending data from Google Suggest, which will be helpful. But if you look at what Google is doing with, AI, it's not rolled out publicly to the masses for all the queries out there. So the data set is just still really, really small. You have to wait for them to roll it out and for the tools to collect a ton of data for you to get a much accurate picture of what you should be targeting. But my thesis is that there's going to be a huge influx of users typing in really long tail. I'm not talking about 3, 4, 5 word phrases, but I'm talking about sentences within the search box to get the answers that they're looking for.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Neil. Maybe a David or Chad question. We talked a little bit about audience segments. Brief question: can you use AI to identify audience segments? Refresh the audience list. Any experience there or thoughts?
Yeah, I can answer that. So we definitely are using AI to put out or input data that's publicly available on the client site or information that we know is true from any of our own research, adding that information into an AI tool like ChatGPT and asking it to give other information based on this audience demographic or this audience parameter. And it will then add in anything additional that we might want to think through, or maybe even come up with some trigger moments or some pain points for that specific audience to make it a more well-rounded portfolio or an audience segment, if you will. So definitely something that we're starting to test. And again, it's just testing and figuring out what outputs come. And then if it's helpful, are we able to use that or add that in to what we're actually targeting specifically.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chad. Let's see here. Ooh, this one's a tough one, but I'm going to give it a whirl. What website builder would you recommend to help show personalized content towards specific segments? I will answer this from an enterprise perspective because Gartner has their Magic Quadrant, which came out not that long ago. And it's the enterprise players that you would probably expect to see. Adobe's on that list, Sitecore's on that list, Salesforce is on that list. Are you guys aware of any sort of plugins or any functionality maybe in WordPress or Shopify or some of the other platforms that SMBs or the mid-markets might be using?
Yeah, HubSpot, I think, does a pretty decent job of allowing personalization. And then there's also, there's a lot of WordPress plugins as well that will allow you to personalize your content on your site, right? So like Optimonk, I think, is a well-known one. I think there's another one called If So, Logic Hop are a few, and they all do different kinds of things, right? Some of them will just look at, some of the analytics data. Some of them might do other things, but, all platforms do, I think, or most of the well-known ones at the very least, should allow or have some sort of plugin support to increase the amount of personalization that exists on your site.
Awesome. I figured WordPress has basically everything.
They do. It's just
see.
I haven't seen the personalization in WordPress work as well as the enterprise tools.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's a big thing. Let's end on this one because we're running up on time. And I think we touched on this, and again, probably a Chad and or David question. How trustable is AI for keyword research, meta description writing, title writing? Which context elements take importance on making decisions? So that's a tough question, and I'm trying to unpack it. But if you've got ChatGPT or plugins for whatever, Google Sheets helping you with keyword selection, should we trust that? I think the answer is no for a lot of different reasons. But any insight into that, either Chad or David?
Yeah, I think that it's pretty nuanced, right? And I realized that that it's part of the question, right? I hate to say it, but it depends, right? So depending on the information that you provide in the prompt, that's going to I think dictate in a lot of ways the quality of the response that you get from it. So if you do basically a zero shot prompt and you're like, hey, write a title write an SEO optimized title for digital marketing, right? It's going to the LLM is going to take what it knows about SEO optimized titles, take what it knows about online marketing, not really have any other context, and is going to spit out something that is probably not going to do your brand any service. But if you utilize the advanced data analysis feature and you say, here, I've uploaded 10 top ranking page titles for this keyword, here's some Search Console data as well for some pages that I have access to. Please write an optimized title tag that does these things. Like at that point, the output is going to be a little bit better. So much of what these tools are able to provide for you is based on what you provide as part of the prompt. So a lot of the work that Chad and his team do, and really the rest of the earned media team do, is figuring out how are we able to provide LLMs with context that will allow them to generate a high quality output that we can then have a person QA and modify based on what we know to be true that is not able to be put into the prompt as well. So it's a long-winded way of saying garbage in, garbage out. And the quality of your response is based on the quality of the context you provided.
Amazing response. So we'll end with this one that I just saw, and it's not on my list, but I think it's a good one, and a good one to end with. Can you talk about the Google SGE experience? Is the effect on organic search, rank, position, click-through rate, going to be nuts? Like just general thoughts on all of the hype around the new Google SERP.
Well, curious to hear David's thoughts, but I'll give mine. One, we don't know how many queries it's going to affect. With things like health and finance, it's going to be really hard for them to give answers. Like the last thing they want to do is give you health advice that's inaccurate that can cause someone to die. Whenever you do a Google search, just think of it this way. There's a lot of inaccurate results or false data. It's not that Google's not trying to remove them. It's a really hard job to remove them. And I'll give you an example that everyone here can relate to. Think about the COVID vaccine when it first came out, and I'm not trying to get political or I'm not trying to tell you something's good or bad, but just look at what happened. When the COVID vaccine first came out, you had a lot of people who said it's good, everyone should get it. You had some people who said it's bad. Now, if you look at right now, if you ask AI about it, they're going to pull a lot of articles that are based on the web. But if you look at the earnings calls from Pfizer, Moderna, a lot of the publicly traded pharmaceuticals, they're writing down a lot of their surplus inventory from all these COVID vaccines, right? Because the stats and the data are showing that not too many people are getting boosters or vaccines anywhere near what they used to. Even if the 6 months or 1 year mark passed, a lot of people just don't care. And again, not trying to get political, not trying to say what's right or wrong, but the reason I bring that up as an example is how is AI going to give an accurate answer to something that is not black and white, right? And you have a lot of edge case scenarios like that. I do think it will impact a lot of informational keywords. And I think you're going to start getting a lot of AI responses for much, much more longer tail phrases than what people are used to typing in. Will I think it cause a decrease in Google clicks? Yes. But a lot of things that Google has done has driven less clicks over the years. According to Danny Sullivan from Google, he said, over the history of Google, they've continually driven more clicks and traffic to websites than the previous year. Now, even though click rates are down, but Google continue to optimize the experience, they've generated more traffic, which has helped. Now, will the same thing happen with SGE? Who knows? Time will tell. But I do think it'll affect clicks in a negative way. But I don't think it's end all be all because a lot of those clicks would have never monetized to revenue anyways in the first place. And I think a lot of people forget that. People optimize too much for a traffic number instead of optimizing for revenue from search.
Awesome. Thank you, Neil. We're 2 past the top of the hour. So I think that's probably all we have time for. One shameless plug, NPD's very own Nikki Lamb actually presented on this topic at Brighton SEO in San Diego not that long ago. So stay tuned for that webinar. I think it'll do a good job of answering some of these questions around the crazy Google search that we're seeing.
And if you
Thanks,
guys
everyone.
need help with your marketing, just check out npdigital.com. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye all.
My name is Neil Patel, and I help companies generate more revenue through digital marketing. Entrepreneur Magazine said I was the #1 marketer in the world, and they also said I created one of the 100 most brilliant companies. I started my first website at the age of 16. I took all the money that I earned from working at an amusement park, and I paid a marketing firm. The marketing firm provided no results, and I quickly learned that I wasn't alone. Out of my frustration and from being broke, I had no choice but to learn marketing. My first client was a power supply manufacturer. I helped them generate another $25 million in sales, and from that point, I realized the power of marketing. I helped everyone that I could, and I built my reputation by being honest and over-delivering. I've helped companies like Google, NBC, Viacom, General Motors, eBay, but nothing's more satisfying than helping small business owners succeed. I founded 4 multi-million-dollar companies, and I've learned all the mistakes that you should avoid. I've written about them on Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, and even on my own blogs. It's so awesome to know that colleges from all around the world are teaching my material in their classroom. Over the years, I've received awards from the President of the United States, the House of Representatives, and the United Nations. People believe marketing is expensive and difficult. Fortunately, that's not true. There is a formula. Even if you don't have a technical bone in your body, you can get results. And my mission is to share this formula with you.